Before we start this episode, we want to do a quick disclaimer. This is a mental health podcast and we are not professionals. These are our opinions and personal experiences on mental health. That being said, we do discuss sensitive subjects.
This is our official trigger warning for our episodes. We are a mental health podcast, and we did want to give a trigger warning to any viewers or listeners that may be sensitive to any topics we might bring up. We do not hold back on the podcast. We will be discussing every corner and in and out, the dark and light sides of mental health, mental illness, and those struggles. So thank you for tuning in. This is your final trigger warning.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning back into the next episode of the Rock Bottom Podcast, episode 11. We're your hosts, Dom.
I'm Kelsey.
And if you watched last week's episode, we did drop a couple hints on what we were going to talk about today. And today we're talking about how the educational system has failed us.
We titled our episode, How High School Sets You Up for Failure, this week, because we really do just have the stance that the school system, grade school, middle school, high school, kind of just has you set up to enter your adulthood for failure, and really it doesn't have you set up for the success that it claims to set you up for. And we want to really get into that today because we have a lot of strong opinions on it. We think it's important to talk about and to recognize, bring awareness to. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of things we could talk about for that concept in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had to stop ourselves and be like, for the pod, sit for the pod, because we just had a lot to say, and we were like, all right. By the way, we do have some fall decor here on the YouTube channel because I am starting fall early. I always start fall early. It's my favorite time of the year. Halloween is my favorite holiday. We just did a bunch of Halloween decorating today, didn't we? He loved it. He enjoyed every second.
Yes, I did.
I totally didn't force him to
do any
incredible.
of
it. I love Halloween. It gives me a whole dopamine hit for a whole season.
No, absolutely. I love Halloween as well. And everything that it brings. Mm-hmm. Fear.
Oh, you love the fear aspect. You love haunted houses. You're a big HHN person. Speaking of which, I am wearing HHN today.
Nice. No free advertisement, but all right, let's get into this episode. Mm-hmm. Let's get a little cozy here. We got a lot to talk about today. So when we say that high school set us up for failure, we're basically getting into the sheer aspect that we enter high school as freshmen. We have this huge idea and how we're going to take over, be popular, and I don't know. I feel like when I first entered the school, I just got this overwhelming motivation. I had to be on the top, and I guess when we have all these expectations of high school and what it means, and by the time we graduate, I guess my what I'm trying to get across here is, do we feel like we're adults when we graduate high school?
Yeah.
Do we feel that
they kind of tell us we are?
Yeah. Do we feel like they gave us the tools and the fruits of life and what we needed to excel into college?
To really graduate and go take on the world as an adult, as a young adult.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what we mean by schools has set us up for failure. I think, in short, simple and sweet, I guess. I mean, not so sweet, but I think they kind of just dick us around for 12 years, teach us bullshit, and waste our time to then tell us, at 18, okay, go out into the world, and we don't know what shit to do. You know what I'm saying? So I think they teach us so many things, and we spend so many hours and homework and lessons on stuff that doesn't matter, stuff we never use again, stuff that isn't nearly as important as it would be to teach high schoolers what credit is and how to manage that and how to do loans and what that looks like, how banks work, how mortgage works, all those things that you need to go into the next stage of your life prepared. And instead, they teach you a bunch of stuff that doesn't matter. You graduate, they hand you a diploma paper, and then you turn around and all the things that you run into for the next 5 years have nothing to do with anything they taught you while you're in school.
Yeah.
And you're like, what do I do? And you run into it and you're like, you have no idea what to do as a young adult because nobody's taught you.
Yeah, but at least I know what the square root of pi is.
Yeah, exactly. And how to do the Pythagorean theorem and all, things like that. Or good thing I ran a fucking mile in 8 minutes because that's really prepared me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
It's just dumb stuff like that. I personally believe like we waste so much time in school, and it's not like that it's not important to be doing productive stuff for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. You definitely should be consuming most of your time with productivity, but that's not productive to me. Wasting time seeing how far you can stretch your hamstring on a reach skill test or a mile, or if you can do a pull-up, doesn't really set me up for success for when I go out into the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 1,000% with what you're saying. And I think that really narrows down on the concept that me and you always talk about all the time, is that school raises workers and not thinkers.
Yeah, absolutely. Wasn't that Rockefeller
Yeah,
that said
John
that? I
D.
think
Rockefeller.
we quoted him before. I think we quoted him last episode or whatever.
Yeah, I'm going to get it from my wall because it's
yeah.
so prevalent.
And like we should get it for the podcast
Yeah.
wall. Like,
No, absolutely.
most
Throw
of
it on
people
there.
that
Oh, yeah, we should probably do that. We should probably load up quotes on the wall. I think that'd be a great idea now that I think about it.
like a badass vision board for the
Yeah.
podcast. I love that idea.
Yeah, I know. I think that'd be incredible.
Thanks, Gems.
Yeah, for real. And getting deeper into that quote, you had mentioned that high school, the good thing that high school does give you is it gives you a schedule. It gives you like kind of a guideway into like how you should set up your schedule.
I mean, yeah, if you think about it, the only thing school really trains you to do is to get somewhere on time,
Mhm.
to essentially get somewhere and like clock in or get to your class by a certain time, be there for 8 hours a day.
Mhm.
It trains you how to sit somewhere in an office or in a classroom for a long time, be bored out of your mind, waste your time, waste 8 hours a day on bullshit. Kind of like the same thing they want you to do when you graduate and go get a job.
Yeah.
Like you said, Rockefeller said, we want workers and not thinkers. So of course they're going to make the educational system and the school system, raise employees, not thinkers and entrepreneurs and people that create happy lives, happy creative lives, or know how to build awesome things. It's not like we're pumping out kids by 18 by graduation that are just like doing all these different crazy things that you could possibly be doing with your life and with the world and with our existence. We're pumping out employees, we're pumping out workers, and that's exactly the way it's designed to be, in my opinion. And America succeeded in that. I think from the day that we're born, we get put in this system that America wants us to be in. It's, preschool and kindergarten and school and middle school, high school, college, work. They've got it scripted out for you. You know what your life's going to look like.
This might be a side rant off of what you're talking about right now, but in school is mandatory. Like, we don't have an option. Like, even if you are homeschooled, you still have to follow that curriculum.
And it's
you still
like
have
on
to
the
take
parent. If the kid isn't in school, it's like the state comes for the parent.
Yeah, and you still have to follow the curriculum whether you're homeschooling your kid or not, because they still have to take that centralized test at the end of the semester, the end of the school year, and that is in it of itself bullshit. The whole entire school system is
censor the curriculum in homeschooling as well.
They do.
Isn't that the point of homeschooling, to teach like how you think things should be taught?
Yes, absolutely it is, but it doesn't take away from the fact that there's still a centralized test at the end of the year. It goes over everything they already teach you in school. So there really isn't a...
That's such a... I wonder why they want us to learn such bullshit and they're so, like, strict about it.
I don't know. I mean, like you said, they are raising employees. Like, we have to experience an 8-hour day, clock in, we have to be there on time, we have to be punctual.
We get punished for being late, we get punished for not showing up, just like a job.
And I guess like the side rant that I really wanted to get into was the fact that, we only have one singular linear way of thinking and teaching in our schools. Like, why don't we have like a hands-on learning? Why don't we have why aren't we exploring different ways of learning and applying it to schools? Why don't we have a content creator school that they're allowed to learn into? Like, why can't we be raising kids based on what they actually want to do as a kid?
Yeah,
and
like,
adapt, like figure out a way of like a personality test or whatever it is that the kid can really, expand their knowledge in the way that works for them. Yeah. Instead of one linear way.
Like, let's all learn this same curriculum, and then if you don't learn it or if you're not doing as well as your classmates, you must be dumb or slower or something's wrong with you. You have ADHD, like something like that. And
And now you're thinking less of yourself.
Yeah. And school is one of the many constructs that gives the stigma to disorders on the spectrum, to mental illnesses. I feel like school perpetuates a lot of that, because if they don't fall in line and can't sit in a classroom and sit still and be quiet and do this test or do this curriculum, then there's something wrong with them. But really, they just have ADHD, or maybe they have anxiety because they have to be at school, or they have this or that, whatever it is that's afflicting them from doing that one option, like you said, of learning.
Yep.
Doesn't make them dumb or less intelligent or less worthy or valid to like learn that stuff and be educated and become something great.
Mm-hmm.
So like you said, yeah, there should be multiple ways to learn. It shouldn't be made to feel like a student's dumb or something's wrong with them if they can't handle the way this class is being taught or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. If we cared about raising up, creative people, students that were actually going to change the world, students that we want, like to go on, do great things and find cures and do wonderful, awesome things in their lives. If we really wanted that for our students and for our kids, right, to grow up and become something awesome, we would treat it like that. It would be less yelling and why are you late? No, you can't go to the bathroom. Where's your homework? You did this wrong. You did that wrong. It'd be less like punishment and reward system and more like, okay, what's going on? Why aren't you grasping this concept? Let's teach it differently. Let's try this. Let's try that. Like really trying to like progress a kid instead of being like, you failed. You didn't score high enough on this test. You got this wrong. You're not understanding this. You're moving too slow. We're on to the next section and you're still not understanding the last one. Too bad. We're moving on. Or so much so you failed the whole grade. Like, do it over. You failed. Like, you have to like redo a whole grade. Now you're held back and that looks bad on your transcripts and all of that affects you. And it's just not fair. Like you said, we should be able to teach kids differently, actually care about teaching them instead of just like grading them this whole time. It should be less about grading and punishments and more about like progress and creativity. And
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And really taking into what you're saying right now, mental health in high school should be a lot more prevalent than it is. It should be a lot more of a priority.
Yeah.
It's not right now. And I felt like when I was in high school, they say you can go to your guidance counselor, but every time I went to my guidance counselor, they were never uplifting. They were never empowering. They told you like, hey, I literally have an excerpt, and my aunt can even attest to this because I think her guidance counselor said the same thing. My guidance counselor literally told me there's jobs to fill outside of going to college. And I was pretty top of my class. The point I'm trying to make here is it was very challenging. So when I did go to my guidance counselors, they put that pressure on me. They put that ideology that if you're not doing well in this program, we'll take you out of it. If you're not doing well in this program, hey, there's a McDonald's on the corner. Because I was applying to really high-end colleges, like University of Florida.
And they were saying like it's not going to cut it, like your performance.
Yeah, they were saying like don't even apply. Like your grades aren't good enough, your discipline's not good enough, you're overall not good enough. They would give me like, hey, like there's community college or there's other entry level jobs that maybe you can get outside of high school.
And did that just kind of like make you feel worse and like drove you more to like a lack of motivation rather than the other way?
No, absolutely. I felt like I was like, what's the point of this if I'm just going to be hitting an entry level job outside of like when I get out of high school? But like almost made me mad, and when I do get mad, I do get very motivated as well. So I can't even say that they were the main reason why I started to slack in high school. I think I overall just started surrounding myself with the wrong people, and just really wanted to focus on having a good time. I was like, I'm young, like these are the best years of our lives. Yeah. And why do I have to really sacrifice these years and put all this time into school just to potentially be in a job that I don't really even care about.
Yeah, so you were kind of like low-key subconsciously depressed about like the future, and that kind of just made you slack off more and just worry about the moment more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And thank you for saying the depression part, because it's going to circle back into the main point that I was bringing with this was mental health in high school.
Yeah.
I think they don't really have it figured out how crazy, I don't want to use the word crazy, but just how significant your mind is in those developing stages.
Yeah. Like, and like we always say, like sponges and stuff like that. It seems like there's a blindness amongst it seems like there's a blindness amongst adults knowing how to handle teens in an emotionally intelligent way, how to deal with teens' mental health. It seems like there's a blindness there, which I don't really understand, because the older I get, I don't forget what it was like to be a teenager, and I don't forget my life experiences. So how do you grow into an adult or a teacher or a principal or adults in general? I feel like there's a mass of adults that just are blind to a lot of things. And I don't get it, because you know what it was like to be a teenager. The same patterns happened in your high school. Why are we continuing them now? Why is there such a blindness of how to handle a child still? Don't you remember how you wanted to be handled?
Yeah.
You know?
I don't want to break down the mental health of teachers and professors and guidance counselors, but I do want to say that, yes, I do agree that there are teachers that really I gravitated towards, that really helped me and gave me mental clarity and really opened up my mind and challenged me and, gave me the communication and the love and respect that I needed as someone that young. And there are other teachers that when I love bringing this teacher up, because she was a rough one, but we were doing Romeo and Juliet, and I spent 3 nights in a row just grinding this project. We were basically putting on a trial, and we had to defend someone that was like basically defenseless, like that was totally guilty. And I think I had a character that literally killed another character, and everybody knew it. But I had to defend him, and I spent 3 nights back to back to back just studying and really creating this case with my grandpa and really making it the best I could possibly make it. And basically what I'm going to say is, when I turned it in, my teacher pulled me out of one of my other classes and said, I know that you plagiarized this, because there's no way in hell, verbatim, that you could ever come up with something this good.
They told you that?
She told me
in
that,
high
yes.
school?
Yep.
What did you say? You were like, no, my grandpa helped me.
Yeah.
Like, that's all you said.
I was so blindsided because she pulled me out of another class directly to inform me of this. And I was so perplexed. I was like, you can ask my family. And she's like, oh, I will be. And I just remember my mom, she tore that woman apart. But I just... did
it get handled?
It got handled, but basically I'm just piggybacking on what you're saying, is how could someone tear down a child or a teenager when...
Or not know how to handle them.
Yeah.
When you were once there.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying.
To piggyback off the counseling thing, yeah, I went to school counselors a lot because I think during middle school, I kept writing stuff in English class that was dark, or I would like admit stuff in my writings that like would raise red flags, obviously, and like raise concerns. And so my teachers would like tell the principals or whatever, and I would have to go to the counselor's office to talk about it. And I just remember it was so uncomfortable. They are so bad at handling kids like that with mental illness. It's like they just have like a checklist to hit, or like they have to do this because they're the counselor, or like the school needs a counselor, but it doesn't even feel like they're qualified in any psychological field. It doesn't feel like they know what they're doing. It's just like very awkward, and they always call your parents and they always tell them what's going on and what you said and what you did. I remember like a bit of a trigger warning, I guess. I remember I was writing some really heavy stuff in middle school, and I started talking about suicidal thoughts and what I was doing. I was self-harming in middle school, and they like pulled me in the office and they talked to me about it, and I just remember like they didn't handle it well at all. And they called my dad and they were like, we're not going to tell anybody anything. And then they called my dad and told him that like I was self-harming, which obviously like I get, because it's like we can't have a child die when we know this information and their parent not know or whatever. Like I get the lines there, but they just like told my dad everything, and it was just all handled very poorly. And that was like kind of traumatizing. Yeah. So just like you said, the mental health is not taken seriously in school.
I think you should have had the luxury of getting that handled on school.
Yeah, like
versus them having to make you open up something that maybe you weren't ready for to your father.
Yeah, like why not? Why didn't they like get with my parents maybe and try to figure out insurance from the school or something like that to get me in therapy or something like that, where they like actively want to help and they're like, oh, this child is struggling mentally. Let's talk to the parents about what we can do if they have insurance. You know, let's get them in therapy. Let's do whatever we can, because like this is a clear sign that we could have a suicide in our school. And let's be preventative, you know? Thank God I got out of that. Thank God I didn't do that. But what if I did?
Yeah.
And they would have been, like, they didn't help at all. So those were, like, active signs that they didn't really pay attention to that much, other than pulling me in the office and telling my dad. And that could have definitely been handled better to prevent situations like that.
Yeah, and you deserve that. And I think every kid deserves that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like I'm the type of person that there's so many situations I had to pull myself out of. I'm very much like always had to go through it alone, always had to figure it out alone, like kind of like the experiences I've had. To bring it back to our point, school didn't help at all. School did actually kind of attribute to the depression, because they put so much pressure on you and they're expecting so many other things out of you when there's real life things happening at home. I was definitely a student that had real life shit happening at home, and actively having some chaotic, traumatic family event happen and then have to go to school 8 hours later. And that happened many nights where I was tired the next day at school, or I was just simply in shock the next day at school because something really traumatic happened the night before, or we were up late dealing with the cops, or we were up late looking for my sister, or whatever it was. It was like my care always came last, and maybe that's why I'm so bad at self-care, because nobody really like taught me how important that was. And it was always like, it's more important to stay up late and deal with drunk people and deal with addicts and deal with toxic family members and in the middle of the night than it is to make sure I get the sleep I need for school so that I perform well at school. See, like that was never taken seriously, because we were always more focused on the drunk family member or the addicted family member or the high family member that we were dealing with that night or something.
Almost get left behind when we have to deal with these family pressures at home.
That's such a good way to put it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and I feel like it's not talked about enough. The answer is always, oh, shut up, work harder, you can do it. You can pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get yourself out of, you know, the inner city or the bad situation you're in if you just work hard enough. But it's like we don't account for the way that trauma and baggage slows us down and pulls us behind everyone else.
Yeah.
100% of the time, the people that have more money than you or less mental traumatic struggles than you are going to be going twice as fast as you, if not more, in my opinion.
Yeah, no one really knows how much your mind really pulls you back when you have trauma and when you have... I can advocate for that, because I remember when I was younger, I thought depression was a lie. I thought it was just something that you just tell yourself because you just want to be lazy or you just don't want to get things done. And when I got to college, I found out that that was fucking real.
Yeah. It takes a lot. Oftentimes it takes people going through it themselves to like admit that mental illness is real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that it really does have a huge effect on you. It's not just like a choice. Sometimes it is. And sometimes it is choosing to play into that illness.
Yeah.
But it's a lot harder than people think.
I think that's what took me so long to really take my own mental health seriously, is because I always thought it was a crutch. I always thought I was using it as a way to, or other people were using it as a way to not get what they needed to get done.
Yeah.
To distract themselves away from reality, to disassociate from the real world problems that they have to conquer. And when I finally realized that this actually is a real thing and this actually is something that you should be cared for and that you should overcome and really self uplift yourself, like just really like propel yourself into the position you want to be in life, that really unlocked a new part of my mind and got rid of a lot of depression and a lot of stress that I was putting on myself that I didn't even know was there. I think we can conclude that conversation and both agree that we don't have the resources that we need in high school.
Yeah, I think we relate in the fact that we were kind of the type of students that had shit going on at home, that had jobs, had other shit going on outside of homework and school. So we weren't like racing to be valedictorian like some of our classmates or something.
Yeah, we didn't get the privilege to only focus on school. We had, like, I know some of the gyms were actually asking us like what our experience was in high school.
Yeah, we did have some gyms asking about that.
Yes, we did. And that was the inspiration behind this episode as well. So I guess getting into it, my freshman and sophomore year, I felt like I really focused on school and I felt like I was really getting good grades and I was joining clubs. I did band, which is...
You were like really involved.
Really involved. Super involved. My junior year, I picked up a job.
Okay. So was junior year the first time you'd ever had a job?
Yes. And I picked up that job because, the finances weren't great at home.
Okay.
So I kind of picked up that job to help alleviate some of that financial stress. And I feel like that really took my attention away. I started focusing more on like sports. I started focusing more on band. I started focusing more on, other things other than academics. I started to really feel pressure prepping for college, and I felt like I wasn't really ready. I knew I wanted to leave and I was excited for college, but I felt like I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And
were you kind of distracting yourself with all those clubs and everything, or what was that? Because you said you stopped focusing on academics.
Mm-hmm. I think my grandfather and my mom in particular really were very hard on me when it came to academics, and I felt like it wasn't the type of discipline and pressure that I needed. Like the way that I needed the pressure to be applied to me, it wasn't how I needed it, and I stopped caring about it because of how aggressive of pressure it felt.
That's kind of like what I was saying in the last episode. I said I feel like I don't really do good under pressure because I had all this pressure in high school. Mm-hmm. Decide, pick a college, pick your career, and that kind of demotivated me. It made me not want to pick those things. It made me procrastinate more because I just felt pressured with those like pressures, no other way to say it. And that demotivated us. I think we relate in that aspect as well. As so many people were like do, or they were like pressing on us or pressuring us or expecting things from us, and that made us want to just like not do anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I relate to that 100%.
And I do. It's weird. It's like I can really thrive from pressure, but it has to be like a different kind of pressure. It has to be pressure that...
Good pressure. Yeah. Healthy pressure. Not like people peer pressuring you to or coercing you to be someone that you aren't, or pressuring you to decide something that you just don't know the answer right now. That's different, They're like literally pressuring you about your whole identity, like pick your interests and decide what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Like, I'm still trying to understand what life is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I was telling you the other day that sometimes I just feel like I'm racing to the end of my life.
Yeah.
And ever since I left high school, that has been my viewpoint, is I'm always thinking about the next thing. I'm never in the moment.
You just like you're running out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that too. We relate in a lot of ways like that. That's funny because I always feel like that. I always feel like the time's ticking. I always feel like time's a wasting. I feel like we need to get moving. Um, and I didn't used to be like that. Yeah, and by senior year, I just didn't care about anything. I definitely had senioritis. I did not care to be there. Freshman year, I was very anal about my grades. I was like 4.0 all of freshman year. Sophomore year was definitely my hardest classes. I took my hardest classes sophomore year, so that was the most academically challenging year, and I tried to do my best at first, and the classes were just really hard, and my grades started slipping because the classes were hard. And then I was really depressed about it and like talked to my dad about it, and he kind of reassured me and said, well, it doesn't really matter, you know, the only thing that really matters is like your relationship with God and like church and stuff like that. So I just like started letting my grades slip, and I let that go because I was like, it doesn't matter to God, you know, like I'll just not care. And then so I just kind of got through my sophomore year best I could. Junior year, I went to Career Center, kind of got a bit of a culture shock from all the different counties. We had a very white school, and then with the different counties coming together at Career Center from all the different schools, it was like a bunch of different cultures, and I had a culture shock, and I kind of went down this like rebellious like snowball effect slide, and I started smoking weed. I started doing all the things, sneaking out, being places I wasn't supposed to be. And that is kind of when my relationship with God went out the window. It was like end of sophomore year, beginning of junior year. I started like just hanging out with whoever I wanted to, smoking weed. I didn't care about anything my junior year. Sophomore year, I kind of wasn't really smoking as much because I wasn't allowed to. My dad kept catching me, but I definitely had senioritis. I was very depressed. I was always going to school with headphones and a hoodie, and I was listening to NF every morning, and I would go to art class and just draw, and I would literally just try to go to school and leave, and I would like nap all the time, and I didn't care about my grades. I was literally just trying to like pass and leave high school because I just hated it so much. I thought it was stupid. I was depressed. I didn't really care for like any people there. Yeah.
I think a lot of kids in particular and people of our age can really relate to what you're saying. I know I forgot the term senioritis, but that is so true.
Yeah, we were saying in the last episode how, and just like you were saying a few minutes ago, how mental health should be more prevalent when you're in school and more cared about instead of like decide this, decide that, this and that, and like forcing you all these things, but also half the time telling you what to do. Instead of doing that, focusing more on mental health and making students focus on who they are, what their passions are, what makes them excited, what they want to do, you know, just point blank period, what they're passionate about. I think that should be a big focus in school instead of like decide. It should be like, who are you? Figure yourself out, find your identity.
Yeah.
And that ties right into mental health and self-love and being healthy mentally. And that if that was focused on in school and we talked about love yourself, identify with yourself, figure out who you are, figure out what you like, do what you like. If we focused on those concepts more than the concepts that we focus on now in school, we would have a lot more success and progress in finding identities and finding what you want to do with your life quicker. Because maybe we might know what we want to do by 20 years old if we focus on mental health during 14, 15, 16, 17.
The years that matter, the years that you like to say when you're sponges.
Yeah, the years that you really need to figure yourself out. Because how do you decide what to do for the rest of your life and you don't even know who you are or what you like?
Yeah, that's what makes you miserable when you really put that pressure on yourself and you really decide what you want to do. I can't tell you how many people I've met in college that are saying like, my parents just want me to do this.
Yeah, nobody's doing like what they want to do. They don't even know what they want to do because they're just listening to all these outside voices. But yeah, I agree. I think like there should just all around be more accessibility to jobs without a degree. Some people can't afford to get a degree.
No.
And so what, they're just less apt to like get a good job.
And if you don't excel in high school the way they want you to, you can't get the scholarships.
I don't know who your valedictorians and salutatorians were, but in my high school we had 2 co-valedictorians and a salutatorian, and all 3 people had 2 parents in the home, married. and didn't have jobs. And I think those two factors are huge.
Yep.
They weren't actively dealing with crazy, chaotic in-home family trauma. Not that they don't have any trauma or they don't deal with anything. Maybe they were dealing with more stuff than we know. But as far as I know, it wasn't like this chaotic trauma happening in their homes all the time. And they didn't have to work and help provide for their families. You and I both have been in situations where we had to help a parent financially.
Yeah.
And that those kids didn't have to do that. So they didn't have to focus on being, working or taking focus away from school. All they had to do was get their GPA to 4.0. And I have the utmost respect and admiration for achieving those achievements. At the same time, it wasn't a kid that had a lot going on. It wasn't a kid that had to deal with a part-time job, that had to deal with paying for things, that had to deal with, baggage at home.
Yeah.
So in a way, I think they kind of had a leg up in that aspect. But not to say they didn't work hard. I think everybody, gets what they deserve. It gets what they achieve, works hard, but it doesn't mean they didn't have help.
I think that's why I really love this concept that we have, is because so many people that are close to me always say, I wish I could go back to high school. I'm like,
I've never understood that.
I'm like, what the f are you talking about? Like, I don't want to go anywhere near that place.
I was so ready to run out of that building when I was done.
Yeah. And I'm someone who was runner-up homecoming king, someone who really climbed the social status of high school, someone that a lot of people knew as I was walking. Yeah. That was walking down the hallways. And I really wanted to hone in on this as a concept as well, that, high school almost felt like my playground. It felt like my world. I felt like I was running a lot of shit.
You peaked?
Yeah. No, did not peak in high school. But I felt like
you were when I enjoyed high school?
Yeah, I felt like when I went to high school, like that was my world. Like I felt like there was nothing outside of high school. Like that was my main focus.
I feel like you used high school as an escape from your home life.
Yeah, I did. You're absolutely right on that.
I didn't do that. I kind of just let it affect everything. I think I was so consumed in my home life and in my trauma that I just took it to school with me. I let it make me depressed. I let it make me miserable and angry at school all the time. I let it affect how I was. I didn't know anything else better. So that was kind of my whole thing. That was the thing that consumed me, because I wasn't engulfed in oh, I'm so good with my grades. I wasn't really even engulfed in my friends group at school. I didn't really have a solid friend group. I wasn't engulfed in sports. I wasn't a great athlete. I was just consumed in home life and what was happening in my family. Yeah.
Yeah. That's heavy.
And I made it my whole personality.
I'm so sorry about that.
No, I don't mean that out of pity. I just mean that's just who I was. You kind of went to school and escaped. Yeah. I don't know why I dealt with stuff this way. A lot of people go distract themselves or go escape, and I don't do that. I full force face things head on, but it's almost to an unhealthy extent. It's it's just so familiar to me. Bad feelings are just so familiar to me that I just run to them because they feel familiar.
Yeah.
It's almost more uncomfortable to take the healthy route.
Interesting.
Instead of drowning in that grief or
self-pity.
Yeah. Self-pity is a really good word for it. That was my whole personality, was self-pity.
Interesting. I think that's almost, we're almost yin and yang in that aspect, because I do everything I can to distract myself from those problems, and you do everything you can to face them head on. So we almost balance each other out.
Yeah.
Where I kind of try to pull you into, let's go do something to distract ourselves from this, and you almost pull me out of, hey, you need to deal with this right now.
You need to think about this.
And circling back and finishing my point, yeah, I just don't agree that I did have what you would call the high school experience, and I still don't want to go back there.
Yeah, good for you. That means that you have grown since high school. That means it wasn't your peak. Like you said, you have friends and you have people that are oh, high school is so great, I want to go back. And it's how have you not found something better to do since then?
There's so much better. And yeah, okay, sorry. And that's finishing on my point. There's so much more out there in the world than you're just in your high school. And I think they really need to push that concept to kids, instead of just hammering down, like, you have to go to the best college, you have to get the best grades, you have to really show our adolescents and our teenagers that there's an entire planet.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's not just this small, what you think is your world in this small little high school. Like, there's so much more.
Yeah.
And when you really show the world off and you really go venture out and embrace other cultures and embrace other ways of life, it really gives you an appreciation for life in it of itself, and opens your mind. And
Absolutely.
I think that's the main thing is, when you do really want to go back to high school or stay in high school, it's because you're closed-minded. It's because you never graduated from that level of thinking.
That is a really good point. Like, what you said perfectly. I remember the mindset I had at 17, 18 years old. I remember my mindset I had walking through those halls and graduating, and the way I thought and what I knew at that age is just so vastly different from what I know now and what I think now. Mm-hmm. And I would not trust the 18-year-old version of me to pick my career right now. I mean, she kind of always had a pull towards art, so she probably would have found her way anyway. But, like, my point is that I was in a totally different way of thinking because, like you said earlier in the pod, high school was our whole world. It was like, here's the world, and as a kid, as a teen, high school is your whole world, and it's like, that's like, it's almost like a mini society, and like that's where you learn to do life for so many years, and you go out and it's like not that way at all in real life. And so the people that peaked in high school, the people that figured out the high school algorithm the best and got it down and knew how to work it, I mean, like you said, you had a good experience in high school, but there's people that got high school down to a T, and then they got into the real world and they were like, don't know how to handle it, so they're like, take me back to high school. I miss high school because it was easier.
Yeah, less responsibilities too.
Yeah, and like you said, it's closed-minded because there's so much more to the world. The real world is so much different than it is in high school, and why would you not want to experience and embrace the real world for what it is rather than like being stuck in like a high school?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's just so much, like, I just see the world so differently now.
Yeah, me too.
Than I did when I graduated.
Mm-hmm. We really just wanted to spread a message that we want to see change in our education system.
Yeah, I think we just want to bring awareness to the fact that there's so much more to know and to embrace than what we're taught in high school, because I personally believe we're taught a bunch of stuff we don't really need, and there's just so much more to focus on. Don't be fooled by the system that wants you to be fooled by it. Don't, think that all we are is working machines to clock in, and our value is based on when we can show up somewhere and how much pointless work we can do. There's more to the world. Entrepreneurship is really empowering and helps you a lot with finding your identity. We encourage you to find yourself and what you like and your passions, and instead of just doing what everyone has told you to do or what the world expects you to do or what school has told you to do or society wants you to do or a college that you kind of got pushed into going to and now they're influencing you to be a certain way or do a certain thing, you need to find yourself. You need to like root back to who you are. Am I happy? Am I doing what I want to do? Am I building my life or taking the steps or partaking in things in my life that like I want to do? Or has society pushed me here? Has school pushed me here? Have my parents pushed me here? Have other people pushed me here? Or is this what I want? So really, I think that's what we really want to bring self-awareness to and encourage our gems to do.
Be honest with yourself.
Yeah, find your passions. Don't go be unhappy in a system that you don't want to be in.
That may not have been designed for you either. Yeah,
and just because like you don't work the way society wants you to work does not lessen your value. Doesn't mean you have less to give the world. There's a quote I actually keep on my lock screen on my phone. I have like that photo shuffle lock screen on where it like changes every time you turn it on.
Yeah.
One of those screens I have is, there is a market for your art and you are capable of finding it. And I always relate it to art because that's my field, but you don't have to be an artist to apply this quote.
Could be anything.
Yeah, there's a market for you in this world, and you're capable of finding the market. There's so many different groups of people, and sometimes it seems like the whole world is a Taylor Swift fan, or the whole world is watching this. But there's so many other people that aren't watching that and that are interested in different things. There's so many people in the world. Maybe there was a billion people. Even if there was a billion people somewhere, that's still not, there's still 7 or 6 more billion people in the world. Mm-hmm. And when have you seen a billion people somewhere? Like, we get blown away because we're like, oh my God, there's a million people at this place, or 500,000 people at this place. But there's like 8 billion people in the world. Yeah. There's so many people, there's so many markets, there's so many customers, there's so many consumers, there's so many opinions, there's so many eyes of beholders that are ready to take in your art, or you, or what you have to put out into the world. And maybe a whole group of people doesn't like what you're doing, but there could be a whole other group of people that does need you and does like what you're doing. So you just have to find your market and find your place, and there is a place for you. You know, you don't have to change yourself or take medicine because my ADHD is inconvenient for the rest of society. No, I think the way your brain works is a gift. A lot of times, you know, we take things with bad stigmas and act like they're bad things when they're really a gift, or like those people are actually really smart or have a brand new perspective or a different way of thinking. We need you. We need you, Gems. We need your views. We need your perspectives. We need your art. We need your words and your work. So you're important. Yeah. And there is a market for each and every one of you. And I promise you, there's enough people in the world to share markets. Yeah, to like, for everyone to have a decent sized market. Like, there's enough people in the world for that.
1,000%. And yeah, we appreciate you being here, and we appreciate you overall. And just keep striving for what you want in your life. Remember, you are the hero of your own story. Mm-hmm. Keep striving for that goal. Keep pushing yourself and really finding who you are as a person. I think that's going to be key for your success and for your life's journey. And they don't really teach you that in school. They don't teach you how to be the hero of your own story. They kind of strip you of that. They kind of make you feel like you
do the opposite.
Yeah, you need to be the hero of someone else's story.
They tell you exactly how to be an employee, like we said, like how to fall in line, instead of like believing in yourself and finding who you are and finding what you need to do. Yeah.
And I also just want to remind you, Gems, that, you know, don't really take in a lot of the pressures that this world sets on you. Don't really, you know, be consumed by what your family pressure is. I know that is very prevalent in a lot of cultures, and, you know, your parents really set the tone for your life. And I know they love and respect you as a human, and when you do find your art and you do find your passion or whatever you want to do in this life and in this world, they will respect you and love you just the same. Mm-hmm. I know it might not seem like that. And I know for myself, I really thought I was going to lose the love of my family when I decided to take the journey that I did. And when I didn't decide to, you know, when I did decide to take a break from school, I thought I was going to lose my family and lose their respect. And they still love me the same. They're still here for me. They still show me the respect and love me as a person. And I still have their support. They just want to see what's best for me. And I think that's the boundary you really need to make with yourself and with your family and with school, is they just want to see something that's best for you, but you have to find it within yourself to really drive that point home and really drive yourself into what you want. Yeah. Because they're going to steer you in the direction they want, but you have to put that boundary that says, I am who I am. Yeah. I know what I want, and this is who I am. Yeah. And
boundaries are huge.
They are.
Yeah, I think that was a good point to bring up. Yeah, don't let societal pressures or family pressures change who you are or what you want to do. Find yourself, stay true to that. Because if you're not happy in something, it'll fade.
Then what's the point?
Yeah. You're just kind of like letting other people live through you, or you're not really being yourself, or you're kind of like a ghost or something. So
I used to call them drifters when I was younger.
What, just like people that just like
just
live,
drift through life, that don't really take control of what they want, don't really
like
take
go
action.
whichever way the wind blows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't really capitalize on their dreams. And, you know, there is that quote that you can go to a graveyard and be the most inspired by a lot of dreams that just never really came true. And that always stuck with me because, you know, life's short, and those people, a lot of those people that are in the grave probably had dreams that they didn't capitalize. I mean, some of them did.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, majority of them did not capitalize on the dreams that they initially had or really wanted to see speak into fruition.
Yeah, I mean, something I think of often is like, I know firsthand someone that passed away that didn't live up to their full potential. My own mom, I feel like she didn't live up to her full potential, and she had so much creativity, beauty, like so many things, like she could have done so many things with. She was a very talented person, and she just did not live up to her full potential. And I think of her often when I'm becoming the person I am. I'm like, this is for her. Like, you know, I'm gonna do what the other women in my family can't do or didn't do, for all my ancestors that were beaten down by misogyny and societal standards that forced women into positions or coerced women into positions they don't want to be in. It's just like, it's for them, you know, for all the people.
I know that, she was here, she would be proud of you.
Yeah, I think so too, and thank you. She was a beautiful person, and yeah, like you said, there's a lot of people that passed away believing the lies of society. We discussed that last week. Vincent van Gogh being one of them, believed the lies of society, believed the response, didn't believe he was successful, or lots of people that didn't bring their dreams to fruition because of society or because of pressures or because they never really leaned into what they knew was right, their own passions, you know. So just to bring Dom's point home, don't let those pressures change you. Find who you are and be true to that, and don't let other people decide it for you.
Absolutely. And we love you, Gems.
We do love you. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye.